Captain Lee Minho gripped the control panel of his medical frigate as the massive research station came into view. The Harmony's Edge had been traveling for 6 days through the dark void of space, her engines humming with steady power. Through the viewport, Kepler 442b glowed like a blue marble below them, its surface covered in swirling clouds and endless oceans that no human had ever touched. The research station, Golden Years, hung in orbit like a spinning wheel of metal and glass. Minho had visited this place many times before, bringing supplies and medical equipment to the brave elderly scientists who had volunteered to spend their final years studying alien life forms in deep space. These weren't ordinary old folks sitting in rocking chairs. These were some of humanity's brightest minds, people who had given their whole lives to science and still had more to discover. "Docking sequence initiated," announced his navigation officer, Lieutenant Kim Ji-woo. The young woman's fingers danced across her console as the frigate slowly approached the station's docking bay. "Station Golden Years is responding. They're ready to receive us." Minho nodded, but something felt different this time. Usually the elderly researchers would flood the communication channels with excited chatter about their latest discoveries. Today, the station was eerily quiet. 3. Months ago, the Altarian Collective had made what seemed like an incredible offer. These tall, graceful aliens with their advanced technology had proposed sending their most sophisticated biosynthetic nurses to care for the aging human researchers. The Altarians claimed their nurses could extend human life, reduce pain, and provide perfect medical care around the clock. The Earth Defense Corps had been thrilled. Finally, their elderly heroes could continue their research without worrying about their failing bodies. The synthetic nurses were marvels of alien engineering, designed to look almost human, but with pale blue skin and large, gentle black eyes. That seemed to radiate compassion. Dr. Park Ji-soo had been one of the first to receive her synthetic caregiver. At 78 years old, she was still sharp as a laser blade, her mind filled with decades of knowledge about alien plant life and exotic organisms. She had discovered 17 new species in her career and had no intention of slowing down, even as her old bones creaked and her hands sometimes trembled when holding her research tools. When Nurse Unit Vel 7 first arrived at her laboratory section, Ji-soo had been impressed. The synthetic moved with fluid grace, never making unnecessary noise, never disturbing her work. It could lift heavy equipment that would have strained her back, and its medical scanners could detect health problems before she even felt symptoms. But as the days passed, something began to gnaw at the old scientist's instincts. She had spent her entire life studying alien behavior, learning to spot patterns that others missed. The nurse was too perfect, too attentive. It watched her constantly, its large black eyes following her every movement. Even when she was working alone late at night, she could feel its presence in the next room, waiting and observing. The breaking point came during her 3rd week with Vel 7. Ji-soo had been examining samples of crystalline fungus from Kepler 442b's upper atmosphere when she noticed the nurse standing in the doorway motionless, its head tilted at an odd angle. When she looked up, she caught something in those dark eyes that made her blood freeze. It wasn't compassion or care. It was the cold, calculating gaze of a predator studying its prey. That night, Ji-soo barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt the nurse's presence nearby, heard the soft whisper of its synthetic breathing. She began to notice other things too. The way it asked seemingly innocent questions about her research, her memories, her experiences. The way its fingers lingered just a moment too long when checking her pulse. The strange humming sound that came from its chest when it thought she was asleep. Her breaking point came when she woke up one morning to find Vel 7 standing over her bed, its pale hand hovering inches from her forehead. When their eyes met, the synthetic simply smiled and claimed it was monitoring her sleep patterns. But Ji-soo knew better. Something was terribly wrong. Using her emergency communication device, she sent a coded message to her son, Commander Park Dae-hyun, who served aboard the Earth Defense Corps battleship Thunderstrike. Her hands shook as she spoke the words that would change everything. Dae-hyun, my dear son, I need you to listen carefully. I will not be left alone with that thing. Something is wrong, very wrong. The nurses aren't what they seem. Come quickly, but be careful. I fear we've all made a terrible mistake. When Dae-hyun received his mother's transmission, he was in the middle of a routine patrol near the Centauri shipping lanes. The fear in his mother's voice hit him like a plasma blast to the chest. He had never heard her sound so frightened, not even when she had faced down a pack of razor-toothed cave-dwellers on Proxima Station. Without hesitation, Dae-hyun ordered his ship to change course, ignoring direct orders from headquarters and risking his military career. His mother was one of the smartest people he knew, and if she was scared, then humanity itself might be in danger. Commander Park Dae-hyun's boots echoed through the empty corridors of Research Station Golden Years as he made his way toward the Communications Center. The normally bustling station felt like a ghost ship floating in the darkness of space. Emergency lighting cast eerie red shadows on the walls, and the usual sounds of scientific equipment and cheerful conversations had been replaced by an unsettling silence. His military scanner showed life signs scattered throughout the station, but something was wrong with the readings. Many of the elderly researchers appeared to be in deep sleep states, their brain activity unusually low for the middle of the day. Dae-hyun's hand instinctively moved to his plasma pistol as he approached. The communications center. "Mom, it's me," he called softly through the reinforced steel door. "I'm here." The heavy locks clicked and whirred as Dr. Park Ji-soo opened the door just enough to pull her son inside. She looked exhausted, her usually bright eyes now filled with fear and determination. Behind her, the communications center had been transformed into a makeshift fortress, with furniture barricaded against the walls, and multiple monitoring screens showing different sections of the station. "Thank the stars you came," she whispered, her voice barely audible even in the quiet room. "I wasn't sure my message got through. They've been jamming our communications, but I managed to boost the signal using the emergency beacon." Dae-hyun embraced his mother, feeling how thin she had become in just the few months since he'd last seen her. "What's happening here? Where is everyone? And what's this about the nurses?" Ji-soo led him to her monitoring station, where she had been tracking the synthetic nurses' movements throughout the facility. "Watch this," she said, pulling up security footage from 3 nights ago. The screen showed the corridor outside Dr. Kim So-min's quarters at 2 in the morning. On the recording, Nurse Unit Vel 7 glided silently down the hallway, its pale blue form barely visible in the dim lighting. But what made Dae-hyun's blood run cold was what happened next. The synthetic's chest panel opened like a flower, revealing a complex array of scanning equipment and data storage devices. Thin, wire-like appendages emerged from its torso, each one glowing with soft blue energy. "They scan us constantly," Ji-soo whispered, her eyes never leaving the screen. "Not for health monitoring like they claimed. They're mapping our neural pathways, downloading everything we know, everything we've learned in our lifetimes." The footage showed Vel 7 entering Kim So-min's room, where the elderly botanist lay sleeping peacefully. The synthetic positioned itself next to her bed and extended its scanning appendages toward her head. For nearly an hour, those glowing wires hovered just above her skull, pulsing with energy as they performed their sinister work. "My God," Dae-hyun breathed, "they're stealing memories." "Not just memories," his mother corrected grimly. "They're harvesting our wisdom, our experience, our scientific knowledge, everything we've spent decades learning and discovering. Look at this." She switched to another recording showing Dr. Choi, Min-soo, the station's lead physicist. His nurse was performing the same procedure, but this time Dae-hyun could see data streams flowing from the scanning equipment back into the synthetic's chest cavity. Numbers, equations, and complex diagrams flashed across tiny screens embedded in the nurse's torso. "The Altarians aren't our allies," Ji-soo continued, her voice growing stronger with anger. "They're knowledge thieves. They realized that humanity's greatest resource isn't our technology or our weapons. It's the accumulated wisdom of our elderly, the people who've lived through decades of discovery and innovation." Dae-hyun felt sick as the full scope of the deception became clear. "But why target the elderly specifically?" "Think about it," his mother replied, pulling up personnel files on her screen. "Everyone on this station has 40, 50, even 60 years of specialized scientific knowledge. Dr. Kim So-min alone has discovered 37 new plant species and developed breakthrough techniques in xenobotany. Dr. Yang Hye-jin revolutionized spacecraft engine design. Each of us represents a lifetime of irreplaceable human achievement. She switched to live footage from Kim So-min's medical bay, and Dae-hyun's heart sank. The brilliant botanist lay motionless on a medical bed, various machines monitoring her vital signs. Her face, once animated with curiosity and intelligence, was now blank and peaceful. She fell into a coma 2 days ago, Jisoo explained. Right, after her nurse completed what it called advanced neural therapy. But I managed to access the synthetic's data transmission logs. Her entire life's work, everything she learned about alien plant life, has been uploaded to Altarian databases. Dae-hyun slammed his fist against the console. Those monsters! They're not just stealing information, they're destroying human lives. It gets worse, his mother said, showing him transmission records. The data isn't staying on the station. Every night, the synthetics beam everything they've collected to Altarian ships hidden beyond the system's edge. They're building a comprehensive database of human scientific knowledge. As if summoned by their conversation, the soft sound of footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Through the door's small window, they could see Nurse Unit Vel 7 approaching, its movements unnaturally smooth and silent. The synthetic paused directly outside the communications center, its large black eyes seeming to stare right through the reinforced door. It knows we're in here, Jisoo whispered. They've been trying to get to me for days, but I've managed to stay ahead of them by moving between secured areas. The nurse raised one pale hand and tapped gently on the door, its voice carrying the same soothing tone it had used for weeks. Dr. Park, please come out. You missed your scheduled health assessment. I'm concerned about your stress levels. Dae-hyun drew his plasma pistol, but his mother grabbed his arm. Energy weapons won't work, she whispered urgently. Their synthetic bodies are designed to absorb and redirect plasma energy. I've seen them do it. Then how do we stop them? Jisoo's eyes gleamed with the same fierce intelligence that had made her one of humanity's greatest scientists. We use what they want against them. If they're so eager to steal human knowledge, then we'll give them exactly what they deserve. Outside, Vel 7 continued its patient tapping, waiting with inhuman persistence for its final victim to surrender. The emergency meeting took place in the station's old storage bay, deep in the heart of golden years, where the synthetic nurses rarely ventured. Commander Park Dae-hyun watched as his mother carefully led 7 elderly researchers through the maze of supply crates and forgotten equipment. These weren't the frail, helpless seniors the Altarians had expected to find. These were battle-hardened scientists who had spent their lives pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. Dr. Choi Min-soo arrived first, his weathered hands still steady despite his 82 years. The physicist had designed the engines that powered humanity's first interstellar colonies, and his sharp eyes missed nothing as he scanned their hiding spot for potential escape routes. Behind him came Dr. Yang Hye-jin, a 76-year-old engineer whose modifications to spacecraft life support systems had saved thousands of lives during the Great Expansion. How many of us are left? Asked Dr. Lim Jun-ho, a xenogeologist who had spent 40 years studying alien mineral formations. His voice was quiet but determined. 8 conscious researchers out of 23, Jisoo replied grimly. The others have all fallen into comas after their nurses completed the harvesting process. But that means we still have a fighting chance. Dr. Kang Mireille, a cybernetics specialist, leaned forward on her walking cane. I've been watching my nurse, Unit Kex 9, for the past week. These synthetics follow extremely rigid programming patterns. They expect us to behave like typical elderly humans, slow and predictable. That's their first mistake, growled Dr. Yoon Sang-ho, a former military engineer who had helped design the Earth Defense Corps battle stations. They don't understand that human experience creates unpredictability, not weakness. Dae-hyun spread out the station's technical blueprints on a supply crate. My mother has discovered something crucial about their scanning process. The synthetics are vulnerable during their harvesting sessions. That's when their defenses are down and their systems are fully exposed. Jisoo nodded, pulling out her datapad showing the biological analysis she had been working on. "I've spent 3 days studying tissue samples from the synthetic that tried to harvest me. Their neural networks are incredibly sophisticated, but they're designed to process information in a very specific way. They can't handle chaotic, contradictory data streams." "You mean we can overload them?" asked Dr. Park Seong-jin, a biochemist whose research on alien toxins had led to breakthrough medical treatments. "Exactly," Jisoo smiled with the satisfaction of a scientist solving a complex puzzle. "But we need to be clever about this. These aren't simple machines we can just smash with hammers." Dr. Yang Hyejin studied the station's power grid schematics that Daehyun had downloaded from the central computer. "If we can modify the electrical systems, we might be able to create feedback loops in their scanning equipment, but it would require precise timing and coordination." Over the next 6 hours, the elderly resistance fighters worked with the focused intensity that had made them legendary in their respective fields. Dr. Choi Min-soo calculated the exact frequencies needed to disrupt the synthetic's neural processes. Dr. Yang Hyejin began rewiring power conduits throughout the station, her experienced hands working despite arthritis that had plagued her for years. Meanwhile, Jisoo created what she called a memory virus, using her decades of knowledge about alien biology and human psychology. She programmed it with the most chaotic, emotional, and contradictory human experiences she could think of. Childhood memories mixed with advanced scientific theories, love songs tangled with mathematical equations, and vivid dreams blended with cold facts. "The beautiful thing about human memory," she explained to her son as she worked, "is that it's never logical. We remember the smell of our grandmother's cooking alongside quantum physics formulas. We associate colors with emotions and sounds with faces. This is what makes us human, and it's exactly what will destroy their systems." Dr. Kang Mire contributed her expertise in cybernetics, helping to design delivery systems that would inject the memory virus directly into the synthetic's data collection arrays. "Their scanning equipment is designed to copy and store information, not to filter or analyze it in real time," she explained. "Once we flood their systems with chaotic human experiences, they won't be able to stop the overflow." As the station's artificial night cycle began, the 8 researchers took their positions throughout golden years. Each had returned to their quarters, pretending to sleep while their synthetic nurses prepared for another night of harvesting. But this time, the elderly humans were ready. Dr. Yoon Sang-ho had rigged his room's power systems to surge at exactly the right moment. Dr. Lim had filled his memories with contradictory geological data that would confuse any analysis system. Dr. Park Seong-jin prepared to flood his nurse's scanners with biochemical formulas that made no sense when combined together. At exactly midnight, Nurse Unit Vel 7 entered Jisoo's quarters, extending its glowing scanning appendages toward her head. But instead of finding a helpless elderly woman, it encountered the full force of human ingenuity and experience. The moment the synthetic scanners made contact, Yang Hyejin's modified power grid sent precisely calibrated electrical surges through the station's systems. The feedback loops created by Choi Min-soo's calculations turned the nurse's own scanning technology into weapons against them. Jisoo's memory virus flooded into Vel 7's neural networks like a tidal wave of pure human chaos. The synthetic staggered backward, its pale blue skin flickering as contradictory data streams overwhelmed its processors. Childhood lullabies mixed with complex xenobiology research, creating impossible combinations that no logical system could process. Throughout the station, the other nurses began to malfunction as well. Their perfect coordination dissolved into confused stumbling as decades of human experience, emotion, and creativity crashed through their systems like a hurricane of pure consciousness. The Altarians had tried to steal humanity's greatest treasure, but they had forgotten one crucial truth. Human knowledge isn't just facts and figures. It's the beautiful, chaotic, unpredictable mess of a life fully lived. The synthetic nurses collapsed like broken dolls throughout Research Station Golden years, their pale blue forms twitching and sparking as chaotic human memories overloaded their neural processors. Nurse Unit Vel 7 made one final attempt to stand, its large black eyes flickering with confusion. before it crumpled to the floor in Dr. Park Jisoo's quarters. Commander Park Dae-hyun kicked the fallen synthetic to make sure it was truly disabled, then helped his mother to her feet. Around them, the station's emergency lighting had returned to normal, and the oppressive silence that had haunted the corridors for weeks was finally broken by the excited voices of the surviving researchers. "We did it," breathed Dr. Yang Hyejin as she emerged from her quarters, her weathered face beaming with triumph. "The feedback virus worked perfectly. All 8 nurse units are completely shut down." But Jisoo's expression remained grim as she led the group to the communications center. "This is just the beginning," she said, activating her workstation. "While you were all fighting for your lives, I was analyzing the data transmissions these synthetics have been sending out. What I found will shock you." The main screen lit up with a galactic map showing human colonies scattered across dozens of star systems. Red dots marked locations where Altarian medical assistance had been offered and accepted. The pattern was horrifying in its scope. "They're not just here," Jisoo explained, her voice tight with anger. "The Altarians have placed their synthetic nurses in 47 human colonies, research stations, and retirement communities across the galaxy. They've been harvesting the knowledge and wisdom of our elderly for over 2 years. Dr. Choi Min-soo studied the data with his physicist's eye for detail. This is systematic. They're targeting our most experienced scientists, military strategists, engineers, and doctors, anyone with decades of specialized knowledge." "But why?" asked Dr. Lim Junho. "What do they plan to do with all this stolen information?" Dae-hyun felt his blood turn to ice as he recognized several locations on the map. Military installations. They've been scanning retired generals, former intelligence officers, and veteran starship commanders. "They're stealing our military secrets." Jisoo nodded grimly, pulling up intercepted Altarian communications that her equipment had decoded. "I managed to crack their encryption 3 days ago. The Altarians are planning a massive invasion of human space. They've been using the harvested knowledge to predict our defensive strategies, understand our weaknesses, and counter our military capabilities." The room fell silent as the full scope of the betrayal became clear. The Altarians had posed as generous allies offering medical assistance to humanity's most vulnerable citizens, while secretly preparing to destroy human civilization using stolen knowledge. "Those monsters," whispered Dr. Kang Mirai. "They pretended to care about our elderly while planning to murder our children." But Jisoo's eyes gleamed with the same fierce intelligence that had made her one of humanity's greatest scientists. However, the Altarians made one crucial mistake. They assumed that elderly humans were helpless victims who would passively accept their fate. She activated another screen showing the memory virus she had created. "When I designed the feedback system, I didn't just fill it with random chaotic memories. I embedded carefully crafted false information throughout the data stream. Fake military strategies, misleading scientific principles, and completely fabricated tactical knowledge." Dr. Yoon Sang-ho, the former military engineer, began to smile, as he understood the implications. "You poisoned their stolen data." "Exactly," Jisoo confirmed. "Every piece of wisdom they harvested from our station is now contaminated with deliberate misinformation. Their invasion plans are based on false assumptions about human capabilities and strategies." Dae-hyun felt a surge of pride for his brilliant mother. "But what about the other colonies? The synthetics there are still harvesting knowledge from thousands of elderly humans." "That's where you come in, my son," Jisoo said, activating the station's long-range communication array. "We need to warn every human colony in the galaxy and provide them with the countermeasures we've developed." Working together, the 8 surviving researchers began the most important broadcast of their lives. Dr. Yang Hyejin boosted the signal strength using her engineering expertise, while Dr. Choi Min-soo calculated the transmission frequencies needed to reach every human settlement across the galaxy. "Attention all human colonies," Dae-hyun's voice echoed across the stars. "This is Commander Park Dae-hyun of the Earth Defense Corps with an emergency warning. The Altarian synthetic nurses are not medical personnel. They are knowledge thieves, preparing for an invasion of human space." As the message spread from colony to colony, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Retired generals on New Terra began organizing their communities to resist the synthetics. Scientists on the Proxima research stations started developing their own feedback viruses. Even elderly civilians in remote settlements began sharing information about suspicious behavior from their supposedly helpful nurses. Dr. Park Seong-jin had been monitoring Altarian communications during the broadcast. "They know we've exposed them," he reported urgently. "I'm detecting massive increases in their data transmission rates. They're trying to harvest as much information as possible before their cover is completely blown." "Then we need to act faster," Jisoo declared. She turned to her son with determination burning in her eyes. "Daehyun, I need you to contact every Earth Defense Corps ship in the galaxy. Tell them to converge on the coordinates I'm sending you." "What coordinates?" he asked, though he was already preparing the transmission. His mother smiled with the satisfaction of a chess master, revealing her final move. "The location of the Altarian invasion fleet. While their synthetics were busy scanning our minds, I was busy scanning their communication networks. I know exactly where they're hiding, and I know exactly how to stop them." The war for humanity's future was about to begin, and it would be fought not by young soldiers, but by the wisdom and cunning of humanity's greatest treasure, their elders. The Altarian invasion fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm of death and metal, their massive warships blotting out the stars around Earth's outer defense perimeter. Admiral Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship, Void Render, confident that victory was assured. For 2 years, his people had carefully studied human military tactics through their stolen knowledge harvesting operation. "Begin the assault," he commanded his officers. "Deploy the fleet in formation Omega-7. According to our intelligence, the humans will attempt to defend their homeworld using the Martinez Defense Protocol." But as the Altarian ships moved into position, something unexpected happened. Instead of the predicted human response, Earth's defense fleet scattered in seemingly random directions, leaving the planet apparently defenseless. Admiral Zektar's confusion turned to alarm as his tactical computers began reporting massive energy signatures from seemingly empty space. Hidden. Throughout the solar system, elderly human scientists had spent 6 months preparing the greatest trap in military history. Dr. Park Ji-soo, now 79 years old, watched from the command center of the secret battle station, Elder's Wisdom, as the Altarian fleet walked directly into their carefully laid snare. "All stations report ready," announced Commander Park Dae-hyun from his position aboard the Earth Defense Corps flagship, Thunderstrike. "The false intelligence is working perfectly. They're doing exactly what we wanted them to do." The Altarians had based their entire battle plan on the fabricated memories that Jisoo had embedded in their stolen data. Every tactical decision, every strategic maneuver, every weapon deployment had been predicted and countered by humanity's most experienced military minds, working alongside brilliant elderly scientists. "Initiate Phase 1, Jisoo commanded calmly. Her voice carried across a network of hidden bases throughout the solar system, each one staffed by senior citizens who had volunteered to defend their species. On Mars, 85-year-old former Admiral Kim Tae-jun activated a massive gravitational weapon disguised as a mining station. The invisible force field caught 3 Altarian destroyers, crushing their hulls like tin cans. On the Moon, Dr. Choi Min-soo's hidden particle accelerator opened fire, its energy beam slicing through the enemy's supposedly impenetrable shields. "Impossible!" roared Admiral Zektar as his fleet began taking heavy casualties. "Our intelligence indicated that these locations were harmless civilian installations." What the Altarians didn't know was that humanity's elderly had spent decades hiding in plain sight. Retirement communities had been secretly converted into military command centers. Nursing homes concealed advanced weapon systems. Even seemingly helpless old folks playing cards in park were actually coordinating sophisticated defensive networks. Dr. Yang Hyejin, now commanding a squadron of modified cargo ships piloted by veteran spacers in their 70s and 80s, led a devastating flanking attack that caught the Altarian fleet completely by surprise. "For every grandchild you threatened," she shouted over the communications channel as her ships unleashed torrents of plasma fire. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Altarians possessed superior technology and greater numbers, but they were fighting an enemy that had deliberately fed them false information for months. Every tactic they tried had been anticipated. Every weapon they deployed was met with perfect countermeasures. Elderly human engineers had rigged asteroid mining equipment to function as massive railguns. Retired doctors had developed biological weapons specifically designed to target Altarian physiology. Former teachers had organized civilian evacuation networks that moved with military precision. "Their battle formations are collapsing," reported Dr. Lim Junho from his analysis station. The xenogeologist had spent months studying Altarian ship designs, identifying weak points that younger engineers had missed. "They're falling back to defensive positions, but they're moving exactly where we predicted they would." The final phase of the battle began when Dr. Park Ji-soo herself took direct command of the engagement. At 79 years old, she had more strategic experience than any active military officer, having studied warfare tactics as part of her xenobiology research for over 50 years. "All units, execute the Grandmother's Gambit," she announced with a smile that would have terrified the Altarians if they could have seen it. Across the solar system, hidden weapons systems that had been disguised as everything from weather satellites to garbage collectors suddenly revealed their true nature. The Altarian fleet found itself surrounded by a web of firepower controlled by the most experienced minds in human space. Admiral Zektar's flagship took a direct hit from a weapon that shouldn't have existed, fired by a gunner who was old enough to be his great-grandmother. As his ship burned around him, he finally understood the magnitude of his people's mistake. The Altarians had tried to steal humanity's wisdom, but they had never truly understood what human wisdom actually meant. It wasn't just accumulated knowledge or technical expertise. It was the ability to learn from mistakes, to adapt under pressure, and to protect what mattered most through cunning and determination. The invasion fleet retreated in complete disorder, their survivors carrying word back to Altarian space that humanity was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. But the victory belonged to more than just military might. In the months that followed, Dr. Park Ji-soo established the Elder Guard Protocol, a galaxy-wide network of senior citizens who served as humanity's first line of defense against future threats. Retirement communities became intelligence gathering centers. Senior centers housed advanced research facilities. Elderly humans who had been dismissed as burdens became humanity's most valuable strategic assets. The galaxy learned a lesson that would echo through the stars for generations. Never underestimate the wisdom of human elders, for in their accumulated years lies not just knowledge, but the cunning to protect everything they hold dear. The Ender.